So right here, we have an inequality, and you have to actually look at the graph on the number line and state what the inequality is. So on quizzes, I want you to type in x, and obviously if it's going to the left, that's less than, and if it's going to the right, that's greater than. So as you can see, this is a solid dot going to the right, so that's going to be a greater than, and because it's solid, it's going to be a solid line underneath it, greater than or equal to that value, -2. So that's what you would type in to get full credit on the test Friday. Get it?
Yeah.
All right. Here's another one. What do you guys say? What inequality is that one? X greater than or equal to -4. Okay, cool. Now, what if it were, let me just draw one here. What if I had something like, let's say -3 right here, -2 right here, -4 over here. Now, let's say it was an open dot going this way. What would that be? X is what? Less than -3. Okay, I think we get it. Hopefully we do. So on Friday's test, we're also going to have solving simple inequalities, like 1 or 2 step inequalities. This is a 1-step inequality. You solve an equation the same way you would, you solve an inequality the same way you would an equation. You want to get x by itself, so you're going to get rid of the +9 by doing the opposite, which is a -9. And when you do to one side, do the other side. And you will end up with x. It doesn't change, it stays the same. And 14 take away 9 is 5. So x is greater than 5. If you were to graph that, that would be an open dot at 5 going to the right. Greater than is to the right. So some really easy points on Friday's test. When we have an inequality like this that says a number divided by -2 is greater than 3, you want to get that x by itself. You don't want this divided by -2. You just want that x all by itself. So how would you get rid of this divided by -2? Anybody? How do you get rid of a division problem? Multiplication by that same exact value. So we are multiplying by a -2 on what you do to one side, do to the other side, multiply by -2. And you should be thinking, well, if I multiply or divide by a negative, I have to change the inequality from a greater than to a less than. And 3 times -2 is a -6. So just a -2 right there. Anyway, so x is less than -6. Get it?
Yeah.
Good. Let's try another. So we're going to have some multiple choice questions on the test. Right here, I didn't even put the multiple choice, or 2 of them that are incorrect right here. But we're going to solve it and then graph it. So you're going to first get rid of the -5 by doing a +5. This is only a 2-step equation, +5. What you do to one side, do to the other. You're going to rewrite it. There's a 3x on the left side. The inequality comes down, and -23 plus 5 is -18. So you really have 3 times x is less than -18. So to get rid of that multiplication of 3, you're going to divide by 3 and divide by 3. That cancels out. X comes down. Do I keep this inequality or do I flip it? Keep it or change it? Keep it. Why? Because I did not divide by a negative on my last step. The only time it changes is if you multiply or divide by a negative. So it stays exactly the same. And yeah, you have a -18 that you're going to divide 3 with, but you're not dividing by a -3, you're dividing by a +3. So -18 divided by a +3, that is a -6, and there's your answer. X is less than -6. How do you graph that? X is less than -6. You put the -6 in the middle, -5, no, -7, -8. Okay, so it's going to be an open dot at -6. And if you notice, that's a less than symbol. Less than is to the left. Or another way of doing it is the inequality itself, it has a point on the left side of it, not on the right side. It has a point on the left side, which means that your area has to point to the left side. I hope this helps. Let's move on. Right here, we're going to be solving this inequality. And it says select the appropriate graph that represents the solution. So we're going to solve it and graph it. You have x on the right side this time. So you want to get x by itself. You're going to get rid of that minus 7 first and then get rid of the multiplication of negative 2. Let's start by getting rid of that minus 7 by doing a plus 7. Or you do to one side, do to the other, plus 7. You're going to have a new inequality that says 10 is less than or equal to negative 2 times x. Again, that is a negative 2 times x. So to get x by itself, you're going to have to divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, and it will flip the inequality because you are dividing by a negative on your last step. So this less than or equal to is going to become greater than or equal to. The x is now by itself on the right side, negative 5 is on the left side. The only other thing you need to do is flip the entire thing. This is the answer, but you want your x on this side and the negative 5 on this side. But since this was your answer, if it was opening up to the negative 5, it has to continue opening up to the negative 5. So you're going to make it open to the negative 5, and that's your final answer. Do you guys think that that's confusing? You want to see an alternate way of doing it? Okay, like, here's an alternate way, all right, even though you don't want to see it. Let's say we go back to the original inequality, and you're like, man, I wish this was on this side and that was on that side. Okay, well, you could just, right from the beginning, you could just switch the whole thing. Put the negative 2x minus 7 on this side, put the 3 on this side, but you got to keep the same respect that this inequality has. It's opening up to the negative 2x, so it has to continue opening up to the negative 2x minus 7. Does that make sense? So you could have flipped it right from the start to have the x on the left side. You flip everything. And then you would solve it, you get the same exact answer. Or if you're like, oh, I just want to get x by itself on the right side, that's what we did, and then flip it at the very end, then you have x on the left side. So it's totally up to you if you want to flip right from the beginning, or if you want to solve it and then flip at the very end. Okay, let's move on. So we have a couple of multiple choice graphing problems. So I'm not even going to look at the multiple choice, but what I will tell you is when you have an inequality and they want you to graph it, even if it's multiple choice, I recommend just writing it down on your piece of paper and then, first of all, rewriting it in slope-intercept form. You want y equals mx plus b. So you would get rid of the plus 4 by subtracting 4. And when you do to one side, do to the other. But of course, you can't take away 4 from x's. So you're just going to rewrite the whole thing. It's going to say y is greater than 1/2 x minus 4. Here we go. Y is greater than, well, that's an ugly grade, is greater than, that's still ugly, 1/2 x minus 4. Okay, so now it's in slope-intercept form. Now it's ready to graph. Now, I still wouldn't even look at my multiple choice options. What I recommend is on your paper, just do a quick sketch. We know that the b value is negative 4. So go to negative 1, 2, 3, 4 on the y-axis. Put that dot right there. And then from that dot, you're going to rise and run according to the m value. Rise 1, run 2. So if you go up 1 and over 2, I know it's just a sketch, but it's going to look like that, right? And you could continue to go up 1 over 2 anyways. But the bottom line is this line is not going to be solid because it doesn't have a solid line underneath it. It's going to be dotted. So you would put your dotted line right through those dots that you already got. It's just a sketch. And then you got to shade where your answers are at. If it says y is greater than, your y-axis is running up and down. Greater than would be above. If it were to say y is less than, you would be below where you would shade. But right here it says y is greater than, so you're going to shade above. So you would highlight everything that's above that line. And then you could look at your multiple choice answers and see that none of these, like this line is that line, but it's not highlighted above, it's highlighted below, so that's incorrect. So none of these is the correct solution for that one. Again, instead of looking at the different answers first, I recommend just writing it over, graphing it on your piece of paper like as a quick sketch, and then looking for it once you already have it sketched on your paper. So let's do the same for this one. You want to get y by itself, you're going to subtract 3, you're going to end up with negative 3y is less than or equal to, you can't subtract 2x take away 3, so you're just going to rewrite it, 2x take away 3. And now what we really want to do is get rid of that multiplication of negative 3 in front of the y. You want the slope-intercept form, you want y by itself. So divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. That cancels out. Your slope-intercept form inequality is y is actually greater than or equal to, because I divided by a negative. Whenever you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip that inequality symbol. I cannot divide 2 by 3, but I could make this slope look nicer by moving the negative up to the top That way the run is going to be positive. We always want the negative either up on top or in front of the fraction. So that's what I want to do. I want to make it a negative 2 over a positive 3 with the x right next to it. And then at the very end, we have the b value, negative 3 divided by negative 3. That is a positive 1. So now this is a slope-intercept form inequality, and it's ready to graph. Again, I don't recommend looking at the answers. I recommend sketching it. It crosses at positive 1 on the y-axis. Okay, it crosses at positive 1 on the y-axis. And then from there, that's an ugly sketch, but from there, you're going to rise negative 2, so you're going to go down 2 units, and you're going to run 1, 2, 3 units. So you're going to put a dot right here, even though that's ridiculously ugly, right? And then, is this going to be a solid line or a dotted line? I know it's solid because it has a solid line underneath it, so you would draw a solid line, and then you would shade above because it says y is greater than, right? So solid because it has a solid line, and you're going to shade above because it's greater than. So when we shade above, you highlight that, and that's what you look for on your multiple choice answers. Obviously, it's not this one. It's not a solid line. So let's go to a solid line. There are only these two that are solid lines. And obviously, it's the one that looks like the one that I just sketched, which is this one. So that'd be your correct answer. So there will be questions like this on the final. I hope you guys understand them. There's this one more extra type of question with regards to graphing like this. This is checking to see if you understand what you're actually doing when you graph. You see, when you graph an inequality, actually when you graph anything, what you're doing is representing the infinite amount of answers that exist to that equation or that inequality. So right here, all of my answers are on the solid line and above. So for example, the coordinate 3, 1, that is a solution because it's in the highlighted area. However, the coordinate negative 1, negative 3, that is not a solution because it's not in the highlighted area. Do you guys understand that? Okay, so if you understand that, let's read the question here. It says, select the correct group of coordinates that are all solutions of the inequality represented by its graph. So I give you guys a group of coordinates. So if we look at this group, the coordinate negative 1 is right here, and it's on the highlighted area. The coordinate 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's definitely in the highlighted area. The coordinate negative 5, 3, negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it looks like it's off, but when you go up 3, 1, 2, 3, you're going to be in the highlighted area. So this is the only one that has all 3 coordinates on the highlighted area. If you try the other ones, it's not going to work. Like, check this one out. 3, negative 5. 3, negative 5 is off of the highlighted area. It's in the white part without the highlight. 0, negative 4. 0, negative 4 is also off of there. Negative 4, 0. Negative 4, 0 is also off of there. So this one for sure, they're all incorrect. All of these are incorrect. So this is the only one that has all 3 coordinates that are on the highlighted area, and that's the group that you're supposed to select. Okay? I hope this makes sense.